Hello, this is Joe Corneli speaking to you again from another Peeragogy in Action podcast. I'm joined today by Phuc Dang, who's in Berlin today, and she's co-founder of FOSSASIA, who's going to talk to us about the long and interesting work she's done in that project. This episode was produced by Charlie Danoff, who learned about FOSSASIA at Wikimania, which took place in Singapore. And I guess, Hong, you're often based in Singapore. So that was interesting. And FOSSASIA helped create Wikimania, so we can talk some about that. But yeah, Hong, you've been involved in the open source world for a long time now. So maybe could you tell us a little bit before we even get into FOSSASIA, how did you come to be involved with open source software as well as hardware, and the ethos of open source?
Yes, thank you very much, Joe, for the introduction and for having me on this episode. I'm really grateful for having an opportunity to talk about my work and the work of FOSSASIA. So the question was, how did I get involved in the open source community? I would say my journey began back when I was a student at the university. So at that time, so that's a little bit about my origin. So I came from Vietnam, which is a developing country. We are still a developing country these days, but you know that having access to a computer was something very privileged at the early age, 15, 20 years ago. And I remember at that time, whenever you bought a laptop, it come with Windows XP. I remember Windows XP at that time. Yeah, and it's not even. I remember that I did not have a original version of Windows, because in that particular places people always get the copy version. Yeah, and at one point it crashes my computer, my laptop. I needed to install something else to make the computer work again. And a friend of mine in university showed me how to install Ubuntu. That it was my first time to try out a free software, the Linux operation system. And since that day, I remember, I think it was 2006 or 7. I never went back to another using proprietary operating system again. So I started to learn how to use Linux, how to learn how to use command line, and started to join the weekly Linux user meetup at my university. Yeah, and by engaging with the user community, I got to meet so many inspiring people. So people who spend hours sitting down with me, teaching me how to do something on the terminal. And when I never have a chance to speak with contributors, I just find that they are always so excited about their work. Yeah, so you can see people who are much who have much more experience than me, who work in the field for 20, 30 years, but still super excited whenever they talk about their contribution. And this has got me really inspiring, that people continue to work on the thing that they love, and continue to make an impact. And most of these people in the community, they work as volunteers. Yeah, they work as volunteers. And over some time, I started to realize the opportunities, the potential of the openness, open technology, and sharing of knowledge. And I think that with open technologies, we can find a way to improve the lives of people in developing country, and not only in this particular part of the world, but people everywhere. And yeah.
Hmm. Well,
And
it sounds like that initial motivation and excitement that you felt being part of a community. I mean, we saw just briefly a picture flash up of FOSSASIA. So now you have been someone who's created that community and created that welcoming, exciting environment for many people. And it sounds to me like that's a very important part of FOSSASIA. So tell us a bit about how that works when someone else comes along, supposing a new student comes and they first access either Linux distribution, or maybe they find out about open source software in a different way. What would be their experience now, and some other new person who comes to your work and they discover FOSSASIA? What will they discover that you've created?
Uh, yes, so I actually did not create it organization all by myself. So I have a
Mm,
partner who, which is Mario Beiling. He had worked many years in the free and open source software community. So when we created for Asia our organization, we wanted to create a platform where people can get together to share their ideas and to collaborate on projects. So these days, yes, the mission still stay the same. We try to advocate for free software and fostering the open source movement around the world, right? People join in like similar to other open source projects. There's always like a community channel. People can come in. They get support from others. But for Asia, we have a number of projects that developed by the communities. So back to your question, how people like they get into Force Asia, what can they learn, how they interact? Basically, they interact and collaborate around these established projects that we have published so far. Yeah, so
mhm,
people normally get into community because they have a problem they want to solve, maybe the technology or the software that meet their requirement to solve a particular problem that they have. Some people come in because they want to learn more about the community, they want to improve the skill. And for I would say for the Asian community, like younger developers or new joiners, their motivation is to improve their skill set. Yeah, so they want to contribute, to meet other people, have an international interaction, at the same time build up their professional profile. Because these days, right, so if you want to be ready for the job market, like in terms of technology, right, so people always like look up what kind of work you have done in the past, and contributing to open source is also like a very good showcase for developers in terms of their professional experience.
mhm. You, you
Yeah.
you mentioned to me just before the chat also that one of your current projects that you've been focusing on, especially lately, is open source hardware, which I think many viewers of this and listeners to the
Mm.
podcast will know about open source software, but they may be less familiar with open source hardware. Um, could you talk a little bit about that project?
Yes, so how did we start to look into open source hardware? I think it was back into if I didn't remember correctly, 2013 or at one of the Force Asia Summit. So
Mhm.
I just mentioned quickly so you understand the context. Every year we run the annual Force Asia Summit. This is our like community get together. We also invite different open source projects to come and showcase their solution and ideas. And at one of our event, I remember it was in Phnom Penh in Cambodia at that time. So we had a high school teacher coming from India. So this is a visit teacher, and he came to us with a problem. At that time, he came to talk about like Python programming for students. And then he told us that in order to teach electronics for students in India, it's really challenging because they do not have a good equipment or sufficient lab where people can get access to, for example, the oscilloscope. Yeah, the oscilloscope, everything like closed source and really like expensive for a group of 40, 50 students. They only can access the lab maybe once every 2 weeks, and there's not enough equipment for them to try out. And it's really important to teach students about electronics, because this is the basis for any products in the
Mm,
world, basically, right? And he asked us, now you can do like software, is there any way that we can make also like hardware that affordable, that help people how to learn electronics? And we look into this. He came to us with an idea. At the same time, he showed us some projects developed in the community in India. At that time, the oscilloscope project that he mentioned to us was not open source. Yeah, and we
mm.
thought, okay, this is an interesting problem. So we brought it up to our community and start to to do research and investigate. And later on, I think 1 or 2 years later, we released the Pocket Science Lab based on the projects have been done by other people in India, and we
Mm.
managed to convince them that it's a good thing to open source the hardware. And with the power of the Force Asia community, we get together, continuously work on this hardware and release the Pocket Science Lab, which we have today.
Nice. Yeah, so that makes me think that it involves in education, both in terms of learning about electronics, but also for anyone who wants to get involved in learning about open source hardware or open source firmware and that kind of stuff. I know I had a friend who lived, a neighbor who worked on embedded Linux inside of a bike light. So you might not think, okay, a bike light, why would it have Linux inside? But it was a very sophisticated bike light, I think, which would, you know, depending on where you went in the city, it was on the city bikes in London. So, you know, and he got paid quite well for that, building this Linux on a bike light. I can imagine that the students you work with, some of them
Mhm.
will just be learning the basics of electronics, but this is also an opportunity for them to, if they choose to get involved with that. So I like this kind of model where you have, you know, possibly quite basic classroom learning, but then people who get more excited can get more involved. And as you saw from that picture, uh, the the there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of people who've gotten involved with the community. Okay, I see from Charlotte on the chat that there's a question has come in already. Live question has come in, so we can take a little break from our interview and invite someone else. So, what is the relative acceptance of free open source software in Asia and other parts of the world? So that's an interesting question. So, yeah, do you think that FOSS has a particular demand? You mentioned that it can contribute to developing countries, but yeah, I've never been further east than Italy, so I don't know. What is it like in Asia? Is it very popular?
Yes, so actually, like free software, right, is a global movement. So,
Mhm.
and now it's, I would say that it's as popular in Asia as anywhere else around
Yeah.
the world. So the thing that you can look, there is a statistic on Git contribution. So if you look on platform like GitHub or GitLab, where open source contributors come from, you will see a lot of contribution actually coming from Asia, if not the
Mm.
highest. Yeah, of course,
Mm.
the US always like for many years like on the top of open source contribution, but in the recent statistic, you can also see that the number of contributors coming from Asia has increased tremendously in the past few years. And I would say that in terms of acceptance, I think the free software is really like widely accepted in many like parts of Asia, and even in China. It's
Mm.
it is a very close country. I brought up China because if we talk about like which country that really like not open, but China recently has also released like software open source, and show that
Mm.
they really open up and want to invest much more into open source technologies. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and I was just curious about the situation now. Is it still the case that many people will get, if they get access to a computer, will it come with Windows, or does
Uh,
it come actually with Ubuntu or something else as by default?
so I believe like by default it still come with the Microsoft, because
Mm,
Microsoft, and not only in Asia, actually even in Europe, yeah.
mhm.
So but people, it's easier for people to install. They can easily change
Yeah.
their operating system. I want to mention one example. I think before COVID, 4 years ago. Yeah, 4 5 years ago, I was in Hanoi. This is the capital of Vietnam, and I
Mhm.
visited a secondary school in I think somewhere a little bit like not directly in the city center of Hanoi, but the entire classroom of secondary school student was using Arch Linux at that time.
Mm,
Arch Linux at
mm,
that time. I was really surprised.
mm.
And the thing is, it actually like the Linux distribution had get into like the hands of the younger generation, even in secondary school. And this is
Yeah.
a really positive side for us all. Yeah,
That is
that
exciting.
yeah.
Yeah, that is exciting. I could imagine in that sort of scenario that that school anyway is sort of a global leader in using and learning about open source software. So that's a fantastic opportunity also for projects like you have to work with the teachers and stuff like that. So, okay, I'd like to ask for the a slide about Eventyay, because that's another one of your projects that we've learned about. I actually, I think, used this platform because I joined Wikimania Singapore from this room here. Charlie was going in person. We were going to give a talk together, but his flight was delayed, so I had to give the talk remotely, and it actually went very well. So tell us a bit more about Eventyay, and we know you can tell a bit more about Wikimania Singapore, but were you directly involved with the organization in any way? How did that work, and maybe other applications of this software that you know about?
Yes, so I was actually involved directly. Joe, I don't know if you noticed that during the time when you deliver your presentation, it was translated into 5 different languages live
Oh
on
no,
the
I didn't know
system.
that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So yeah. So we translated all the talk live using the system. So Eventyay is an open source event management system. Why did we start this project? So as you know that we organize a lot of events ourselves because we believe that events is like a platform to bring people together. Yeah.
Mm,
And a few years back, when we first started, we were looking for a solution that can help us with like managing all kind of different aspects of an event organization, and it's really challenging, so there was not a solution where they offer everything in one solution for all the different tasks, or it's good, there's no like open source solution. You have to go for vendor solution, and we don't want to get like vendor locking into any products out there. And running community event cost is another like aspect that we need to consider. For example, there's a lot of commercial service like Eventbrite, or like maybe most people know it, but you have to pay quite a high commission to the
mhm.
platform. Yeah, and so we were looking and we couldn't find something that's suitable for us and affordable for us. So we started to develop our own system. So the uses of Eventyay basically for our own FOSSASIA
Yeah.
events. But then later on, we get more and more interest from the community. More people join in the development, and not only Wiki media, but also other open source organizations started to try out and use Eventyay. Yeah, and for you mentioned Wikimania Singapore, that this is actually a very interesting case that we should talk about. Yeah, so for the Wikimania event, they actually use Eventyay for. I see that you have a screenshot about scheduling. So
Mm,
I must say, as an event organizer for many years, one thing that I really like about the system is, for example, so if you have an event that you receive a few hundred speaker submissions, right? You have to review, you have to accept, and it's also really challenging how to schedule all these sessions, especially with the Wikimania where they have like different tracks, different rooms. Yeah, it all
yeah.
can be done easily via a user like the web interface, just drag and drop, and like quickly you can generate a schedule, and when you need to make any like changes into the schedule, it's also very easy because it deploy live directly. So if a speaker
Mm,
cancel and cannot like join the event anymore, you can with like 1 or 2 clicks, the schedule automatically updates itself. So this is the feature that I really like about the system, and I think the Wikimania also used for ticketing for registration. Yeah, the system totally capable of. And one thing that I really like, which is the translation, live translation that I mentioned to you. So during your session, when you deliver your speech, actually we have multiple people in the background,
wow.
like translate into like 5 different languages, and as the user, they can select on the panel when they join online, they can select the language of their interest. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was going to ask if that was live translation by people or if it was live translation by some type of AI software, but it's live translation by people. I just
Yes,
going
by
to mention
people.
that on a previous podcast, I think it was number 11, we had some co-organizer of a conference about Emacs. So that's here, this effective organization in peer ecosystems was on there. But it just occurs to me to think about, so with Emacs Conf, they had run this conference about Emacs several times. Um, but I don't think it's at the same scale of hundreds of speakers. It's more like 20 speakers maybe, or something like that. So they had made their own system that works quite well for them, but I might encourage them to have a look at Eventyay and think about if they wanted to make it that much bigger, to look at your software and to think about using something else. It's interesting to think about that difference between, and I might also like to use it because I've organized something. We had a festival of AI we organized, and I think our website was just a Google site. So this sounds much nicer than that, but it still seems like it's a lot of work to organize these events. So okay, so could we please have the next slide up, Charlotte? Just I want to ask about the future. And while I'm doing that, I'd like to briefly just mention anyone who's listening that if you want to follow up, this video will be posted on YouTube directly after the recording. You can also follow up at peerspress.com/peeragogy in action, or our website is peeragogy.org. Peeragogy.org is just running off of a Google, sorry, as a GitHub repository. So I'm sure our website could be improved. But yeah, so maybe if we were interested to collaborate further in the future, how would we get in touch? And what are some of the other projects? Do you have other additional projects, or are you still thinking we're going to really focus the next few years on this open source hardware and events? How does the future look for your organization?
Yes, so before I talk about the future for the organization, I just want to mention what you said earlier about like the whole thing about AI topic, right? And
Mm,
the future of Eventyay. So we actually also thinking of integrating some kind of services AI into this whole platform. For example, something that normally you have to do yourself, for instance, write accept an email, or doing a press release, or organizing some site check it in an event. So all these things in the future, it could be like automatically done via the system,
mm,
and this is something that we are looking into. For example,
mm,
if you said, okay, please write me an email to reject or accept the speaker, there should be already something that's automatically generated for your own users. So this is something,
yeah.
the direction that we want to go with Eventyay. Yeah.
Mm,
In terms of the future of the organization, I think so free and open source software, I believe it's not just the way like for people to exchange their code freely, but it also a collaboration model
mhm,
that sets an example of how people around the world can work together in a peaceful manner. And as you
mm,
know, we are in the situation now, we are facing so many challenges in our world these days. And the question about how to sustain the world that we are living in today, yeah, how to tackle all the um, sustainable challenges. And I think that for Asia, we want to continue our mission to promote open technologies that can improve people lives in many different aspects by offering like environment where people can work together, and by fostering education, like open source education to the younger generation. Yeah, our focus, I would say, in the next few years is develop community and technology that tackle the sustainability challenges around the world. Yeah.
I like that global focus. I think a lot of our listeners, certainly not exclusively, but a lot of them are in the US and Europe. So how can other organizations or other people from around the world get involved? Because as you point out, these are global issues. Are there ways for other people to join, even if they're not based in Asia?
Yes, so we welcome like everyone to join. We actually have
Mm,
mentors and developers outside of Asia. Yeah, so
mm,
thank you very much for sharing the website of our Git repository. So you can find many FOSS Asia projects under the FOSS Asia GitHub organization. And we are running coding program which is going on at the moment, codehit.org,
mhm.
where people can learn more about different projects, and at the same time to connect with the community. And another opportunity is the FOSS Asia Summit, which will take place in Hanoi on April 8th to
Mm,
10th, 2014. Yeah, so
mm.
I would like also to take the opportunity to invite people to join us either like in person or online. So we will stream the entire event online as well.
Um, cool. Yeah, we'll have to share the links for those things in the YouTube description. But yeah, I think we're coming close to the end. If it's okay, could I invite our intern Abhishek and the series producer Charlotte on? They may have some questions because they've been listening attentively. One of the patterns we found in Peeragogy is when people listen and think, they tend to come up with interesting insights. So Charlotte and Avicek, if you're willing to join us, that would be great. They're appearing now. There's Charlotte in Boston.
Apologies for my chaotic background of my office.
It's okay. That's the studio space.
Yeah.
And is Avicek here?
Abhishek. Yes.
There he's appearing too. Okay, great. So I was wondering if either of you have any questions. Maybe Avishek, I think you have more experience of the Asian context than Charlotte has. So maybe if you want to hit off with a question about just reflecting on FOSS Asia, what do you have any questions that came to mind? Oh, we don't hear you.
Yeah.
No, actually, I was just hearing about all the conversations you were having. So, yeah, as of now, I don't have any questions for this. I was just eagerly hearing all this because I wanted to take a experience on this, like how this worked, because this is my first time. This was the first podcast I ever attended. So
Fair,
it
fair.
was like really, I really, really loved it. Like the way you both convert your experience.
I think we have a lot to learn from how you've created this organization inside the Peeragogy Project, because we've been working for a long time, but our ability to build an organization has been, we've gone slower, I would say, and so it'd be very interesting to hear if you have any great advice about how to build a similar type of successful organization. I know this is something that Avishek is interested in, and some of his colleagues interested in building, whether startups or other organizations. But this one seems to have been very successful. So to what do you think you would attribute the success of FOSS Asia?
I don't know if I could say that we are very successful, because I think that we still have a lot of places we need to improve, and need to learn from other organizations. So, but one thing that I think that contribute to the role of the organization, when you engage with the community, it's really important to understand the motivation of the people who involved, and set the expectation clear in the beginning, and be transparent about what you are working on. Yeah. So so basically, for FOSSASIA in particular, so the motivation I mentioned during our conversation today, for the young people, why do they want to join in a community, like in open source community? So it's more about looking for opportunities to portray themselves with like experience contributing to open source project, build up a profile where they can land in a better job in the future. Yeah. So it's about like what you see like as a value of the organization that you can promote to the community. Yeah. So this is important, and I think that in different parts of us of the world, people have different interests, and it's just a matter that how do you find the interest of the community and align with the value that your organization want to deliver.
Sounds
Sorry.
like a good pattern. Go ahead, please, Charlotte. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
I find it very inspiring to just realize that this is going on in a huge other section of the world than we have our little, we have our focus on the US or Europe and the Western world. It's really cool to know that this is thriving in another part of the world. And it's inspiring.
I think, yeah, Charlotte, you have a regional organization there in your publishing world, but yeah, other regions have their own quite thriving ones, and maybe some more exchange between those different organizations. We could learn some great patterns.
It's always nice to know you have, buddies or compatriots in this area, in this focus of study or
yeah.
technology.
So
Yes.
we see one more question just drifting in with the chat, which is, in your experience, because you mentioned the importance of engaging young people, what do you find they're most excited by in terms of your concrete projects? Which are the projects are they most interested in?
So the people, the younger people, they to join in contests. Like I mentioned, like Code Hit, where they can solve smaller tasks and see the outcome of their work right away. So instead of like working a very long time in a software project, so they like to see smaller tasks that they can do and see the outcome right away, and at the same time learning from it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, it's easier for them to join in on the front end side of a project than back end, because front end is easy for people to get in. So a lot of young people get into development on the front end side. Yeah. And the idea of like having connected with people in the same age group, the same generation, like I mentioned, like throughout like coding contests where people can learn together and help each other. And surprisingly, people really like to do like peer review, So when you give a younger person a responsibility to have another joiner to join, so they get very excited when they have more responsibility and can help another person. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, so that Charlie's got the link codeheat.org in the chat. If we could just put that up for people to look at, for anyone watching the video. That said, as well, Eventyay.com, codeheat.org, and pretty soon we're gonna have to wrap this one up because we try to keep these to about half hour. We're past the 30-minute mark. We got a lot of information in there. Another thing to say is we like to keep learning and growing. You mentioned, that sounds to me like one of the successes of FOSSASIA is you keep improving. So you keep saying, okay, we've got many other things to learn. That's already a great success to keep learning yourself. So what I was going to say is we have a set of questions that we like to flash up at the end of this thing. Yes, please.
Sorry.
And while we're going to close down the podcast, the live session of the podcast, we'll have a review section later. Charlotte, if you could put up the meet.jit.c/peeragogy, we can discuss their what we learned together.
Yeah,
So,
let me just, I'll put a banner up. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So Hong, thank you so much for joining us for this recording. I think it's a very successful and enjoyable interview. Thank you for your time. Avishek and Charlotte, thank you for helping to structure the conversation, and Charlie behind the scenes, coming up with some good questions and some great images for the slides. So
the after we thing is a meet.jit.si.com/peeragogy.
There's no .com, just .si/peeragogy.
Peeragogy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so Joe, Charlotte, and Abhishek, Charlie, also, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. And as Charlotte mentioned that, okay, you are very glad to learn about what we do in Asia, and I'm really honored, and I highly appreciate the opportunity for us to connect with you, because if you don't doing the podcast, we also do not have a chance to speak about our work to more people. So I really think that it's very important, the work that you do, and thank you very much again for having me and for like having FOSSASIA into your episode. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. Yes, we'll make sure to get the word out about this, and we'll stay in touch as time goes by. So thank you, everyone. Charlotte, I think we can stop.
Do you want me?
Yes.
You want me to join the GC meet?
Yeah, sure.
Well?
Please do. Please do if you have time. Come along. There's meet.jit.c. There's no extra dot, and then /peeragogy. We'll see you there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Okay,
We'll see you there.
See you
Thank
there.
you.
Bye.
Bye.